Ethan Carter had never imagined his marriage would be anything but steady. At 37, he'd made a name for himself as a skilled roofer throughout the Tri-County region, known for his knack in repairing, replacing, and installing roofs, whether on quaint little bungalows or massive suburban estates. There was something deeply satisfying to him about the gritty texture of asphalt shingles under his hands, the patient rhythm of laying them row by row, and the calm sense of pride that came with looking down from a freshly finished rooftop. In his trade, accuracy and reliability weren't just nice to have, they were essential. You had to get every angle just right to keep water out and ensure that families could rest easy at night without a drip overhead. His wife, Vanessa Carter, was 34 and worked as a sales manager for a big-name wellness company, the kind that sent her off regularly to empowerment conferences and healing retreats. She had a slick way with people, charming them into buying whatever lifestyle she was selling, and her steady income helped balance out the unpredictable nature of Ethan's roofing gigs. When he scored a big contract, especially with local developers, the money flowed. But during slower seasons, it was Vanessa's paycheck that kept the bills paid. They shared a modest two-story house on the edge of a middle-of-the-road American city. Oak Bridge wasn't flashy, it was all strip malls, a long central road, and neighborhoods that stretched endlessly outward. Their own street was lined with neat lawns, weekend BBQs, and kids zooming by on bikes. Ethan liked that kind of simple routine. He'd grown up in a blue-collar home. His dad was a plumber. His mom worked part-time at the town's pharmacy. Quiet dinners, the occasional movie night, a once-in-a-while trip to the local steakhouse, that was his idea of a good life. So when Vanessa started taking her girls' trips every couple of months, claiming she needed to reconnect with her feminine energy, he didn't question it too much. Supposedly, they were spa weekends, yoga retreats, or bonding trips with her old college friends. Ethan thought the frequency was a little much, but he took her word for it. She'd always return with filtered photos of mountain resorts, champagne toasts with other women, and gushing text messages about how centered she felt afterward. That all changed one Sunday. Vanessa had just gotten back from yet another three-day getaway. The next day, Ethan was down in the basement trying to make some space for new tools he'd snagged on sale. While clearing out old roofing supplies, he popped open a large gray storage bin tucked away in a corner and froze. Inside was a full-body leather suit, jet black, with a single mouth hole and no slits for the eyes. He lifted it carefully, trying to figure out what the hell it was. Sporting gear? A weird costume? The material was thick and slick, almost shiny, and carried a faint chemical odor. Not your everyday yoga wear, that's for sure. Thick zippers ran across it, hinting that this thing had a very specific, and probably very adult, purpose. What the hell is this? He murmured aloud, turning it over. Then he heard her. Ethan? You down there? I heard you open something. Yeah, babe, he called back, swallowing hard. Just rearranging stuff. Vanessa's heels clacked down the basement stairs. As soon as her eyes landed on the suit in his hands, her face went pale. Oh. He raised his eyebrows. You know what this is? She blinked. I think one of my girlfriends left that behind. Some kind of joke gift or prank. It's not mine, seriously. Ethan studied her face. A prank, he repeated. She let out a shaky laugh. Yeah, a bachelorette party a few months back. We had a bunch of goofy stuff. It probably just got mixed into our things. I honestly don't know how it ended up down here. The explanation didn't sit right with him, but he gave her a slow nod. Okay, so should I toss it? Her answer was instant. No, I should return it to my friend. She spent a lot of money on that ridiculous gag. Ethan quietly placed the outfit back in the bin and snapped the lid shut. He walked up the stairs feeling uneasy, but told himself not to overreact. Vanessa had never given him a reason to be suspicious before. Still, he couldn't sleep that night. His mind kept circling back to the feel of that strange suit, the dark leather, the mouth hole, those thick industrial zippers. It didn't scream prank. The next morning, while Vanessa was out making sales calls, curiosity got the better of him. Ethan headed back downstairs and opened the same bin, but the suit was gone. At breakfast, she'd mentioned something about mailing it back to her friend, but she'd rushed out the door without saying who or where. Something didn't add up. Maybe, he told himself, it was just some embarrassing adult novelty thing. Maybe she was too proud to admit it. But then, why lie? Why bring up a party that happened months ago, when he was pretty sure she barely remembered until now? That's when the suspicion started to burn. Over the next few days, Ethan paid closer attention. Vanessa didn't act much differently. maybe just a bit more aloof. She still made Tuesday night spaghetti with homemade sauce, ran errands on Wednesday, and hosted her usual Zoom call on Thursday with those wellness clients of hers. On the surface, everything looked fine. Nothing dramatic, no sudden overnight trips, no fights. But that uneasy feeling lingered, gnawing at his gut. Ethan wasn't one for confrontation. He was more of a find it and fix it type of guy. And if something in his marriage was cracked beneath the surface, he wasn't going to bring it up until he had the facts. Ethan tried convincing himself he was just being paranoid, that maybe he needed reassurance more than actual answers. Still, something inside him whispered that the truth, if uncovered, might be worse than he'd prepared for. Standing beneath the harsh glow of the electronics store's fluorescent lights, he couldn't help but feel ridiculous. He wasn't some undercover agent, not even close. He knew nothing about surveillance gear. But there he was, scanning shelves lined with covert gadgets like he belonged in a spy movie. A gray-haired salesman strolled over, wearing a practiced smile. Looking for something specific? Ethan cleared his throat. Yeah, do you have anything small? Something that records without being obvious? Like a keychain cam, or whatever. The man nodded knowingly. Oh, sure. Right this way. He led Ethan to a locked display case packed with miniature recording devices, pins with hidden cameras, voice recorders no bigger than a lighter, and GPS trackers compact enough to fit in a sock drawer. We get all kinds coming in, the salesman said as he unlocked the case and slid a few items out. Suspected theft, shady employees, cheating spouses. I don't ask questions. Everyone's got their reasons. Ethan gave a tight-lipped smile. Right. Just keeping tabs on my property. In the end, he left the store with a small haul, a hidden camera disguised as an air freshener, a voice-activated recorder the size of a USB drive, and a magnetized GPS tracker built to latch onto the underside of a vehicle. He hated the direction things were heading. Snooping on his wife wasn't something he took lightly, but the memory of that disturbing leather suit kept pushing him forward. Over the next few days, while Vanessa was out of the house for work, Ethan got to work setting things up. He mounted the fake air freshener in the corner of their living room, cleverly nestling the lens behind a plastic plant. The recorder he tucked into her car's glove compartment, wedged beneath a pile of old takeout receipts. The GPS tracker he carefully attached under the rear of her trunk. The first couple of weeks were a study in monotony. The hidden camera captured hours of mind-numbing footage, Vanessa lounging on the couch, thumbing through her phone, absent-mindedly flipping TV channels, or doing yoga in the living room with exaggerated calm. The audio recorder picked up mundane conversations, clients complaining about delayed shipments, Vanessa walking them through sales numbers, and casual chats with friends about lunch dates and kombucha brands. Nothing pointed to anything out of the ordinary. If anything, she seemed almost boringly consistent. One Wednesday evening, Ethan stood at the stove grilling chicken while steaming vegetables on the side. Vanessa breezed through the door with a bottle of kombucha in hand, her voice chipper. Smells good. I'm starving, she said, barely glancing at him as she set her drink on the table and tapped away at her phone. Ethan forced a friendly grin. Busy day? Yeah. Last-minute Zoom meetings got dumped on me. Total mess. She didn't look up from her screen. Ethan watched her from the corner of his eye, trying to spot anything strange, any odd messages or hidden smiles. But all he caught was a text notification from one of her coworkers about a meeting the following week. He started to wonder, was he just being paranoid? Maybe he'd let one strange find spiral into a web of suspicions that had no real basis. But then Saturday rolled around. Over a breakfast of scrambled eggs and toast, Vanessa dropped news that sent a jolt down his spine. I'm going on another girl's trip, she said breezily, not bothering to ask if he had plans or cared. Kelsey, Brianna, and a couple of the others want to spend a few days at Lake Glendale Resort. Ethan's stomach sank. Lake Glendale was beautiful, but also remote, private, and a favorite for so-called wellness retreats. Cabins, hot springs, spa packages, and just enough isolation to keep prying eyes away. He tried to keep his voice light. Already? You just got back from one. She shrugged without meeting his gaze. Work's been intense. We need a reset. I'll be back Tuesday. That's a 5-hour drive, he said, watching her closely. Someone going to take care of your office plants? She chuckled, dry and dismissive. They'll survive. Don't stress so much, Ethan. He nodded, letting it go on the surface, but something hardened in his chest. This time, he wasn't staying home. On Monday morning, just after sunrise, Vanessa backed out of the driveway, her suitcase already loaded. Ethan kissed her goodbye and pretended he had a roofing job across town. But instead of heading to work, he climbed into his own truck and parked a few blocks away, engine humming. The GPS app on his phone pinged her location. She was heading north, straight onto the interstate. He followed at a safe distance, keeping several car lengths behind. At every pit stop, whether it was gas or coffee, he waited a few minutes before pulling off, always keeping out of sight. It was nerve-wracking. His palms were sweaty, heart racing. This wasn't who he was, but it was who he had to become. After about 5 hours, Vanessa's car exited at the Lake Glendale sign. She pulled into the resort's parking lot and vanished behind the lodge's front doors. Ethan parked across the street near a rundown diner with faded paint and dusty windows. From there, he had a clear line of sight to the main entrance. Around noon, he saw her again. She stepped out of her car, wheeled her suitcase to the check-in desk, and disappeared inside. 30 minutes later, he got a text from her, a photo of her and 2 women he recognized, Kelsey and Brianna, smiling in bathrobes and clinking glasses. At first glance, everything lined up. But Ethan's instinct screamed otherwise. Something about her body language, the timing, the too perfect image, it felt curated, controlled. He decided to stick around. He grabbed a cheap sandwich from the diner, brought it back to his truck, and settled in to watch. By late afternoon, his eyelids started drooping. The heat inside the cab made him drowsy, and the hum of traffic lulled him into a light sleep. Then, knock, 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 a sharp rapping at the window yanked him back to reality. Ethan blinked, dazed. Outside the passenger window stood Logan Pierce, Brianna's husband. He looked just as surprised. "Ethan? What the hell are you doing here?" Ethan unlocked the door without saying a word. Logan climbed in, his broad frame filling the seat. Years of construction work had built him up solid, and he carried the same permanently furrowed brow Ethan remembered. Ethan narrowed his eyes. "I could ask you the same thing." Logan let out a sigh, rubbing the back of his neck. "I've been following Brianna," Logan admitted, rubbing a hand across his jaw, tension in his shoulders. "She told me she was heading up here with the girls, but something just doesn't sit right. She's been acting strange for a while now." Ethan's eyebrows lifted. "Let me guess, you found something weird at your place?" Logan gave a slow, grim nod. "Handcuffs. Real ones. Heavy-duty metal." She tried to pass it off as some dumb joke gift, but I couldn't shake the feeling there was more to it. Ethan's heartbeat kicked up. "So, you followed her too?" Logan nodded again and explained how he'd waited until Brianna hit the road, then trailed her vehicle at a distance. Just like Ethan, he'd watched her check into the resort like everything was perfectly normal. "I guess we're both chasing the same suspicion," Logan said quietly. They decided to work together. Logan pulled his car into the space next to Ethan's, keeping the setup low-key. They quickly made a plan. One of them would keep watch while the other rested, switching off in shifts. They both set alarms on their phones, determined not to miss anything, especially if Vanessa or Brianna tried to slip away during the night. It wasn't long before things got interesting. Around 1 a.m., as Ethan was half-dozing in the driver's seat with the radio murmuring low, Logan suddenly shook his arm. "Ethan, look." Ethan snapped awake and followed Logan's gaze through the diner window. A black van, unmarked and ominous, had rolled around to the side entrance of the resort. The headlights were off, but the faint light from the lodge's exterior lamps illuminated the scene just enough. 3, maybe 4 large men in dark suits stepped out. Moments later, the side door of the lodge opened, and out came Vanessa, Brianna, and 2 other women. They were still in casual wear, but now each of them wore oversized black hoodies, hoods up, faces mostly hidden. Without hesitation, the suited men escorted them quickly into the back of the van. The doors slammed shut. The headlights flashed on. Logan let out a low breath. That is not a typical resort shuttle. Ethan's instincts kicked into overdrive. "We're following them." They fired up the truck and pulled onto the road, keeping a generous distance. The black van wound through the twisting mountain roads, taking exit after exit until the terrain grew more rugged and unfamiliar. For nearly 3 hours, they tracked it. Highway turned into narrow backroads, which eventually became a winding gravel trail flanked by towering pine trees. At last, the van approached an iron gate set into an elaborate stone wall, the metalwork ornate and gleaming in the moonlight. Ethan pulled the truck off to the side and killed the lights. Both men got out quietly and crept toward the trees, crouching low to avoid detection. Beyond the gate, they caught a partial view of a massive estate, a palatial mansion with tall columns, high walls, and zero signs of nearby life. Not a single neighboring home. The van drove up a long, paved driveway and came to a stop in front of a wide courtyard. Motion-sensitive lights flared on, revealing the same suited men stepping out and guiding the hooded women inside. Logan clutched Ethan's sleeve. I can't see where they're taking them. We need a better view. Ethan glanced upward. Let's climb one of these trees. With his background working rooftops, Ethan scaled the thick branches of a sturdy oak like it was second nature. Logan followed clumsily behind. From their new vantage point, they had a much clearer view of the estate's entrance, a sprawling marble veranda flanked by columns. Armed guards in suits patrolled the grounds, each one wearing an earpiece and scanning the perimeter like they were expecting trouble. Ethan pulled out a cheap pair of binoculars he kept in his truck for job site inspections. Through the lenses, he caught sight of a sleek black Cadillac pulling into the courtyard. A tall man stepped out, decked in flashy gold chains, moving with an air of arrogant confidence. His presence was unmistakable. He was someone used to power. Ethan narrowed his eyes. The guy looked familiar, but he couldn't place why. Then, the man laughed. It was a booming, velvety chuckle that echoed across the grounds. Logan hissed under his breath. Who the hell is that? I don't know, Ethan whispered, but he looks really familiar. As the man walked toward the entrance, a melody surfaced in Ethan's mind, an old-school hip-hop beat. He hummed it under his breath. Logan squinted at him. You humming something? Ethan nodded slowly, pulled out his phone, and opened a music ID app. Feeling slightly ridiculous, he hummed the melody. The app buzzed with a result. I'll be missing you, P. Diddy. Logan's eyes widened. Wait, are you saying that guy is P. Diddy? Ethan shook his head, still watching. I'm not saying it is, but he's got the same build, the same vibe. That laugh, it's identical. This whole thing is surreal. They stayed up there, watching in stunned silence as more luxury cars arrived, Rolls-Royces, Bentleys. Men in sharp suits stepped out with their elegant companions, women in cocktail dresses and high heels. Every now and then, they caught glimpses of more figures in black hoods being escorted around back. Whatever was going on, it wasn't a party in the conventional sense. This was something else, secretive, high-end, and definitely not legal. The armed guards, the secluded location, the van, everything screamed danger and corruption. Ethan and Logan decided they couldn't just sit on this. They dialed 911, speaking in hushed tones, trying to explain what they were witnessing. Possible abductions, strange late-night arrivals, private armed security. Nearly an hour later, a lone police cruiser rolled up to the estate's front gate. Ethan and Logan watched, barely breathing, as two officers stepped out and approached someone at the entrance. They exchanged a few words, nothing intense, no signs of concern, and then, unbelievably, the cops returned to their car and drove off. Logan gaped. That's it. They're leaving. Ethan felt a pit form in his stomach. They're either scared off, or someone's getting paid to look the other way. By morning, the black van was still parked on the property. There had been no sign of Vanessa or Brianna coming back out. Ethan's phone had died during the night, so he headed back to his truck to plug it in. Logan followed, both of them running on caffeine and stress. They considered storming the place themselves, but quickly realized how suicidal that would be. Between the guards, the remote location, and whatever they were up against, it was clear this wasn't something two guys could fix on their own. Late morning sunlight filtered through the trees when Ethan caught sight of a lanky man dressed in black slipping out of a side gate at the mansion. He was carrying a worn duffel bag and heading toward a gray sedan parked on the shoulder of a narrow road. Without hesitation, he climbed in and started the engine. Ethan and Logan locked eyes. This could be their break. They tailed the sedan cautiously, keeping back several car lengths as it descended the winding mountain roads. After nearly half an hour, the vehicle turned into a rundown gas station at the edge of a rural highway. The man stepped out, glanced around, and made his way to a rusty payphone outside the convenience store. He made a short call, then went inside and emerged a minute later with a pack of cigarettes in hand. Logan leaned forward, voice low and tense. This is it. We corner him now, maybe he cracks. Ethan gave a nod. His pulse thundered as they approached. As the man opened his car door, they rushed him. Ethan grabbed his jacket while Logan yanked the door wide and shoved him against the vehicle. Where's my wife? Logan snapped, fury flaring in his eyes. What the hell was that van doing at the resort? The man froze, shock giving way to panic. I don't know what you're talking about. Ethan pressed in closer. Don't lie. We saw you come out of that property. Our wives went in and never came back out. You're going to talk. The man shook his head furiously. You have no idea what you're stepping into. They'll kill me if I say a word. Logan's voice dropped, cold and deliberate. Who's they? The man's eyes darted, searching for escape, but he stayed silent. Ethan quickly patted down his pockets and retrieved a cheap phone, basic, burner style. "Hey," the man barked. "Don't touch that. I'm warning you, if they know it's missing, I'm as good as dead." Logan didn't flinch. Too late. They backed off quickly, retreating to Ethan's truck with the phone. The man shouted and stumbled after them, but stopped short when he saw the determination in their eyes. "You don't understand," he called out. "They're not just dangerous, they're protected." Ethan and Logan peeled out, hearts racing. The phone was locked, of course, but Ethan knew someone who might be able to crack it. Back in Oakbridge, they handed it off to a tech-savvy friend of Ethan's, someone who owed him a favor. An hour later, they had access. The contact list was full of cryptic entries, initials, numbers, nicknames like Moth, T1, and Blue Sea. They dialed several, but most didn't answer or hung up after hearing unfamiliar voices. Then one call connected. A voice on the other end asked flatly, "Still looking for security work? We've got a gig next weekend." Logan, thinking fast, responded in character. "Yeah, definitely." "Good," the voice said. "Meet me at Miller's Tavern tomorrow night." As for Dante. Later, Ethan checked the hidden camera footage at home. Vanessa still hadn't returned. She texted occasionally, claiming she was still at the lake resort, sending photos of scenic views and smiling friends, but the timestamps didn't match. He recognized at least one of the images from a previous trip. The realization hit hard. She was actively trying to keep up the illusion, lying to his face. That night, Ethan barely slept. He dreamed of flickering lights, voices behind masks, and cold hands pulling him down endless hallways. He woke up soaked in sweat, unable to shake the growing fear that his wife might not be a victim, but a participant. Logan had been texting Brianna too. Still no response. They knew they had no choice but to go deeper. The meeting at the bar could be their way in, maybe their only shot. They also realized word might already be spreading. That gas station incident hadn't exactly been subtle. They began watching for strange cars on their street, new faces in town, anything out of place. The paranoia wasn't just paranoia anymore. The next evening, Logan headed to Miller's Tavern alone. It was on the outskirts of town, the kind of dive that reeked of stale beer and old smoke. The neon sign buzzed, half its letters dark. Ethan parked across the street in his truck and sent a quick text, "Careful." Inside, Logan spotted the contact instantly. A man with a shaved head, dark leather jacket, and a deep scar cutting across his right cheek nodded at him from a back booth. "You the guy?" he asked. Logan sat down. "Yeah, heard there's a job. Pays good." The man looked him over, unimpressed. "You're not really the type we use. We need tall guys, built, preferably black or Latino. The clients like variety." Logan played it cool. "I've got someone. Ex-military. Big, jacked. Black. I can vouch for him." That made the man's eyes light up. "Got a pic?" Logan showed him a photo of Tyrone, muscular, ex-army, clean record now. The guy nodded. "Have him come in Friday for screening. If we like him, he's in for Saturday." Before leaving, the man slid a small note across the table. It had an address and a time, tomorrow at noon. Logan left quickly and met Ethan at the truck. "It's happening. They're recruiting. Tyrone might be our way in." Ethan ran a hand over his face. "Then we need to talk to him. Now." Tyrone Mason had been a close friend of Logan's since high school. A former soldier with 5 years in the Army, he'd seen combat, struggled a bit after, but straightened out. Loyal to a fault, and tough as hell. When they explained everything, Tyrone didn't blink. "Sounds shady as hell," he muttered, rubbing the stubble on his chin. "But if it helps find Vanessa and Brianna, I'm in. Just promise you're close. If it goes bad, I want to know you've got me covered." They did. No question. Tyrone suggested a hidden camera. Ethan had one small enough to pin inside a belt buckle. They tested it to make sure it recorded clearly. The next day, Tyrone showed up at the address, a grimy warehouse that looked abandoned from the outside. Inside, it was different. Clean floors, modern lighting, a temporary office with 2 men in suits and a woman in a sleek black dress. The interview was unlike anything he'd expected. They asked if he had health issues, if he was okay with discretion, if he had any ethical problems with adult entertainment work or private service for high-paying clients. The woman never broke eye contact. Tyrone answered calmly, never giving away how tense he felt. But even as he smiled, he could feel it, something dark humming beneath the surface of this whole operation. In return, they offered Tyrone $5,000 for a single night of work, plus a $2,000 signing bonus if he agreed to keep everything confidential. He kept his tone even, playing it cool. He told them he needed the money to cover personal debts, a story close enough to the truth to be believable. The interviewers nodded, seemingly satisfied. Report to the mansion at 8 p.m. sharp on Saturday, one of them instructed, handing him a folded slip of paper. The address printed on it was in the same remote, mountainous region Ethan and Logan had tracked earlier. After the interview, Tyrone met up with the two of them in Ethan's modest living room. He sat hunched over the coffee table, spinning the button-sized camera between his thumb and forefinger. His strong posture and military background usually gave off an air of confidence, but today, his expression carried a look of genuine disbelief. "So let me get this straight," Tyrone said, leaning forward, the late afternoon sun catching the smooth dome of his shaved head. "You want me to go undercover into some elite, cult-like mansion party, with a hidden camera shoved God knows where?" Ethan and Logan exchanged a glance. Ethan cleared his throat. "Yeah, that's basically it. From what we've learned, their security is intense. Full pat-downs. Metal detectors. We don't know how far they go, but it's serious." "Right," Logan added. "That's why we need someone like you. You're ex-military. You stay calm when things get ugly." Tyrone gave a short, disbelieving snort and looked down at the tiny camera again. "Okay, fair enough. But, where exactly are you expecting me to hide this thing?" He raised an eyebrow, already suspicious. Ethan grimaced and pointed at the sketch he'd drawn, a crude diagram of potential hiding spots. "Well, the only places we think they won't check are unconventional. Like in your shoe, behind a belt buckle." Logan took a breath. "They'll check your shoes, your belt, your collar, maybe even your waistband. These guys don't mess around. They found everything when we tried to get close last time." Ethan looked miserable as he said it. "Which means the only place they're unlikely to search is, internally." Tyrone blinked, then burst out laughing. "You want me to hide a camera up my ass? Man, hell no. I did that once. County jail. Not by choice. Not going back down that road, especially not voluntarily." Logan held up both hands. "We know it's insane, but unless you've got some secret spy gear we don't know about, this is our best shot. They'll catch it anywhere else." Tyrone's laughter faded, his tone sobering. "And if they get suspicious and do a cavity check anyway? Then what? I get caught with a spy device jammed inside me and wind up buried in a ditch." Ethan spoke quickly. "We'll offer you more. Another 10 grand if you do it. On top of everything else." Tyrone paused. "How much were you even paying me before?" Logan shifted in his seat. "We pooled our savings. 5 grand now. 5 grand after. That's 10 total. But if you agree to the full concealment method, we'll add another 10. Tyrone looked torn. He exhaled, then shook his head. "Look, I'm not doing this for the money. I already said I'd help you two take these psychos down." He paused, jaw tight. "And by psychos, I mean your wives, their creepy little cult, and whatever twisted garbage is happening up there. My girlfriend cheated on me not long ago, so yeah, I get it. I'd love to burn that whole place to the ground." He had the camera again. "But you're seriously telling me the only way to get proof is me being the poor bastard who sneaks and playing mule for a recording device?" Ethan tried to smile. "Unless you've got a better idea, we're out of options." Tyrone sucked his teeth, eyes drifting down to the camera one more time. "Jesus, I can't believe I'm even considering this." Then he sighed and nodded. "All right, but only because you're my friends, and I want to help take these freaks down." Logan visibly relaxed. "Thank you, man. We'll do everything to keep you safe. We'll be nearby. If anything feels wrong, we'll call the cops, kick in the gates, whatever it takes." Tyrone rolled his eyes. "That'll be real helpful when I'm already inside and surrounded by armed guards. Don't forget, these people have muscle. From everything you've told me, they're not scared to use it." Ethan nodded. "We know. That's why it has to be you. You're the only one who can handle this." Tyrone cracked a half grin. "You two better never forget this. I'm talking free steak for life, best man at your next wedding level of owing me." Logan clapped him on the shoulder. "We'll remember. But seriously," Tyrone added, sitting up straighter, "we need to figure out everything, what I do once I'm in, how to get out safely, how to hand off the footage without getting caught." Ethan leaned in. "We've got ideas. We'll go over everything, step by step." So the plan was set. Tyrone would drive himself to the mansion on Saturday night. Ethan and Logan would park just up the road, hidden by thick trees, staying close to intervene if needed. Tyrone would pass through security, follow instructions, and record as much as possible, his tiny camera hidden in the least dignified spot imaginable. Saturday came faster than any of them liked. Tyrone spent over an hour pacing the floor of a rundown motel they'd rented for prep. He muttered to himself, psyching up for what he was about to do. I cannot believe this. I really cannot believe this. He finally turned to Ethan and Logan. If either of you breathes a word of this to anyone, ever, I'll deny everything. Clear. Logan raised a hand. Total secrecy. Scout's honor. Ethan nodded solemnly. Let's go. Tyrone donned a tailored black suit jacket over a crisp black t-shirt, checked his reflection once, then climbed into his beat-up SUV. The winding mountain roads ahead twisted like a snake through towering pines. As he climbed higher, a large wrought iron gate appeared, gleaming under the late evening sun. Two armed guards in sleek black suits stood at either side, their expressions unreadable. Tyrone rolled down his window, doing his best to appear calm and confident. One of the guards asked for his name. He gave it, along with the fabricated reference provided by the scar-faced recruiter. One guard cross-checked a clipboard while the other swept a metal detector slowly across Tyrone's torso and legs. Tyrone held his breath as the device beeped at his belt buckle. He unfastened it quickly, handing it over. The guard examined it thoroughly, then gave a small nod and handed it back. Satisfied, they waved him forward. The driveway beyond the gates curved gently through more trees until it opened up to a stone-paved courtyard where valets, all wearing plain black half-masks, waited in formation. The sight unsettled Tyrone. Masked valets? That was bizarre. And he had a feeling it was only the beginning. One valet opened his door, nodded silently, and slipped behind the wheel of Tyrone's SUV to park it elsewhere. Tyrone stepped out and joined a growing group of guests heading toward the mansion. All the men were sharply dressed in black suits or tuxedos, most wearing ornate white Venetian-style masks that left only their mouths visible. The women were a spectacle, draped in flowing gowns, faces half hidden by feathered or jeweled masks, some glittering under the chandeliers. Even at a glance, the scene reeked of hidden wealth and secrecy. This wasn't just a party. This was a performance for the elite, by the elite. Inside, the mansion's grand foyer gleamed. White marble floors reflected the crystal glow of chandeliers. Two wide staircases curved upward to an open balcony. Gold-framed mirrors and classical statues lined the walls. A massive bouquet of white orchids sat in the center like an altar. Every person wore a mask. Silver, gold, black, white, faces blurred into mystery. Tyrone scanned the crowd, heart hammering. A tall man in a pristine white suit approached. His porcelain half-mask concealed his eyes and nose, leaving only his mouth visible. He studied Tyrone with cool detachment. You must be new, the man said. Tyrone nodded. First time. I was told someone would give me my assignment for tonight. I'm Roman. Follow me. Roman turned and led Tyrone down a dimly lit corridor. They passed closed doors behind which low voices, soft laughter, and unsettling sounds echoed. At one door, Tyrone caught a glimpse of someone in black latex. Another wore a collar. He swallowed hard. They reached a lounge where a few men in black suits stood talking in hushed tones. Outside the window, a perfectly manicured garden glowed with ground lights. You'll be part of supplemental security, Roman explained. We only hire men with particular experience. If you're ex-military, that's ideal. Tyrone nodded. I am. Good. Then you know how to follow protocol. No talking unless spoken to. No interfering unless a guest's safety is in jeopardy. And never, under any circumstances, remove a guest's mask without permission. Understood, Tyrone replied. Roman handed him a plain black domino mask. Wear this. It marks you as staff. Tyrone slid it on. It fits snugly over his eyes, held by a thin elastic strap behind his head. He felt absurdly exposed, like he didn't belong, but he couldn't afford to show doubt. He shifted slightly. The hidden device he was smuggling was making its presence known. Uncomfortable didn't begin to describe it. Head to the Grand Hall, Roman said. Position yourself near the central columns and remain alert. Tyrone did as told. The Grand Hall was even more impressive than the foyer. The ceiling soared 30 feet above, painted with swirling angels and dramatic clouds. Dozens of candles flickered from mounted wall sconces. A soft, seductive melody played from invisible speakers. It all felt theatrical, lavish and ominous. Guests sipped champagne, spoke in whispers, or simply moved through the room with a strange, practiced grace. Among them, Tyrone spotted familiar faces from TV, politicians, business leaders, celebrities. Powerful people who weren't supposed to be here. Then he saw them. A group of women entered the hall, wearing full-body black latex suits. Their faces were covered by tight black hoods with only small eye holes and mouth openings. Each one bore a choker or plaque with a number etched into it. Some wore short heels, others went barefoot. Tyrone scanned their identical suits, searching desperately for signs, anything that might help him identify Vanessa or Brianna. But the suits were uniform, and the women moved in eerie synchronization. The room quieted as a man in a white tuxedo stepped onto a small stage. Two men in elaborate half-masks flanked him, each holding a silver staff. "Welcome," the man called out, his voice reverberating through the marble hall. "Tonight's ceremony will commence shortly. Those who've joined us before, you know the expectations. For our newcomers, observe and learn." Polite applause followed. Tyrone stood rigid beside a marble column, trying not to squirm. He prayed the camera was still working and that Ethan and Logan, waiting somewhere out in the woods, were getting every second. A line of latex-clad women was guided onto the stage by masked escorts. Heads bowed, hands clasped behind them in glossy gloves. Tyrone counted 10. Another masked man stepped forward and began reading from a thick list. Number 1, property of Mr. Whitaker. Number 2, property of Miss Ellington. One by one, each woman was labeled and assigned. These weren't guests. They were being displayed, claimed. Tyrone's blood ran cold. Some listeners chuckled. Others murmured in eager, hushed tones. Finally, the announcer reached number 7. Tyrone felt his pulse spike. Number 7's hood tilted just enough to reveal a hint of auburn hair near the neck. 7. Special request. Private session with the Circle's esteemed patron. Potential bids begin at 50,000. A ripple of whispers swept through the crowd. Tyrone's mind reeled. Auburn hair. Ethan had mentioned that Vanessa's hair had a red-gold hue. Could this really be her? Was it just a coincidence? Then came another name. Number 14, assigned to the Skylark Syndicate for tonight's entertainment. Tyrone flinched. Logan had described Brianna's features a dozen times. Slender build, dark blonde hair, upright posture. The woman in the suit matched all of that. He wasn't certain, but his gut said it was her. Polite applause followed, mingled with flashes of discreet phone cameras. Some guests swirled their drinks while others called out early bids, their masked faces betraying nothing. It felt less like a social function and more like a grotesque market. Tyrone clenched his fists, jaw tight. He forced himself to stay still, to remain just another fixture of the scenery. His stomach churned. Two robed attendants stepped onto the stage and gestured for the latex-clad women to follow them down a side corridor. The guests applauded again, some casually returning to their conversations. The ceremony continued. A speaker in a white mask praised the legacy of the Circle, a so-called sanctuary of power and indulgence that had lasted for decades. Tyrone almost gagged listening to the self-important rhetoric. It was a cult hiding in plain sight, and the deeper he was pulled in, the worse it felt. He wanted to move, to get closer, but a tall, muscular guard blocked the corridor with arms folded and a gaze that dared anyone to test the boundary. Then, Tyrone's phone vibrated in his pocket. Risking a glance, he turned his body slightly and checked the screen. Text from Ethan. "Anything? You see them?" Tyrone typed back quickly. Saw number 7. Maybe Vanessa. Number 14 might be Brianna. Ceremony like an auction. Filming all. Trying to get more. Sliding the phone away, he resumed his post and whispered a silent prayer that no one had noticed. The last thing he needed was suspicion. An hour later, as more guests mingled and soft music filled the air, the lights dimmed. Silence fell. A group of men entered the hall, all cloaked in black velvet. Their masks were detailed with gold filigree, symbols that looked like family crests or occult designs. They formed a circle. The man who'd opened the night stepped forward and placed a towering silver candelabra in the center. A low chant began, rhythmic and eerie, accompanied by soft chimes that seemed to vibrate in Tyrone's bones. The guests gathered in quiet circles around them, gazes fixed forward. From a side door, the latex-suited women returned, each guided by a robed escort. The women knelt in a crescent arrangement before the altar, heads bowed. Tyrone spotted number 7 and number 14 at the far end. They were trembling, just barely, but he noticed. The tension in number 14's shoulders was unmistakable. The chanting grew louder. One cloaked man raised a silver chalice and began speaking in an ancient, ceremonial tone. Tyrone couldn't catch all of it, but the words loyalty, indulgence, and submission echoed clearly. Another man in white approached with a thick, leather-bound book and began reciting from it like some twisted gospel. It was part cult ritual, part fetish pageant, and all deeply wrong. Tyrone felt bile rising but forced himself to stay composed. He could only hope the camera, tucked uncomfortably where no one could find it, was still capturing everything. Meanwhile, just outside the estate, Ethan and Logan sat in Ethan's truck, parked behind a thicket of pine trees about half a mile up the road. The feed from Tyrone's hidden camera flickered on Ethan's phone, unstable but functional. They leaned forward, watching. Masked men, chanting. Women in suits kneeling. Ethan's stomach clenched at the thought that one of them was Vanessa. Logan gripped the wheel with white knuckles. That's her. That's Brianna, Logan breathed. I know her shape. I know her hair. That's her. Ethan swallowed hard. We have to stay calm. This is evidence. It's happening. And we're catching it. Logan cursed under his breath. What if no one listens? The cops already blew us off once. What if they're all on the take? Ethan's eyes didn't leave the screen. Then we go higher. Feds. Media. Whatever it takes. But we need something solid. Something with names, faces, roles. They sat in silence, tense as a loaded trap, watching the bizarre ritual unfold in flickering footage. Then, static. The screen blinked. Froze. The feed was gone. Ethan cursed and tapped frantically. We lost him. Logan inhaled sharply. Maybe it's just interference. Give it a minute. Every second stretched. Finally, Ethan's phone vibrated again. Text from Tyrone. Battery dying. Trying to slip out. Wish me luck. Relief and anxiety collided. If Tyrone was leaving, either he had enough footage or something had gone wrong. Neither option gave them peace. Ethan opened his mouth to suggest moving in closer when headlights swept across the trees behind them. Logan checked the side mirror. Wait, is that? Before either could move, a black SUV screeched to a halt behind them. Doors flung open. Flashlights beamed into their windshield. Ethan's pulse spiked. Two men in suits rushed up, guns drawn. One yanked open Ethan's door, shouting. The other did the same to Logan. In seconds, they were dragged from the vehicle and thrown to the pine needle-covered ground. Hey, what the? Ethan cried out. A hard punch drove the air from his lungs. He collapsed, coughing, unable to fight back. Logan fared no better. He caught a brutal punch to the jaw that made his ears ring like struck cymbals. Before he could recover, a rough hand yanked a black hood down over his head, drowning him in total darkness. Think you can spy on us? Someone hissed in his ear. We know exactly who you are. We've seen your plates. You cause trouble again, you'll end up in the ground. Ethan couldn't see, but he felt everything. Fists slamming into his sides, boots connecting with his ribs. His whole torso lit up with pain. Somewhere nearby, he heard Logan let out a choked cry of pain, his voice muffled by his own hood. Our boss wants a little chat, another man sneered. Without warning, they were both hoisted and shoved into the back of a waiting SUV. The doors slammed shut, echoing like prison gates. Tires crunched, then roared over gravel as the vehicle sped away into the night. Ethan's lungs burned from the beating, but fear overwhelmed pain. They were being abducted, taken, dragged back to the belly of the beast. Time lost all meaning during the drive. Maybe half an hour passed, maybe longer. Ethan couldn't tell. Pain and adrenaline made it impossible to think straight. When the vehicle stopped, they were manhandled again, dragged out by unforgiving arms. Ethan's hood was finally torn off, and he blinked into the dim glow of a concrete garage. Logan was beside him, on his knees, blood dripping from his split lip, one eye already swelling shut. From the shadows, a tall figure stepped forward. He wore a full gold-trimmed mask that covered his entire face. His black suit was immaculate, tailored to the last stitch. Behind him stood two more men, each with pistols holstered at their hips. Gentlemen, the masked man said, his voice smooth and resonant, with a practiced authority. You've been nosing around where you clearly don't belong. Ethan coughed, trying to speak. His ribs screamed with the effort. You have my wife, Vanessa Carter. I just want her back. The man laughed, a cold, hollow sound. Your wife is here of her own free will, Mr. Carter. She has obligations. Her choices are not your concern. Logan, blood in his mouth, spat on the floor. Our wives are in there, forced into God knows what. Let them go. One of the guards stepped forward and backhanded Logan, sending him sprawling. The masked man gave a theatrical sigh. Whether they're forced or not is irrelevant. We control the law, the courts, the police, this entire region. Any attempt to expose us will end with your quiet, permanent disappearance. Are we clear? Ethan's fists clenched, trembling with rage. We're not the only ones who know, he muttered. Lies, the man snapped. But that's immaterial. Rumors always circulate. Yet we remain untouchable. He nodded at one of the guards. Remind them why. What followed was savage. Boots, fists, elbows. Ethan curled in on himself, trying to protect his head. Logan cried out again, a gurgling sound of pain. After a solid minute, the man raised a hand. Enough. Take them away. Ethan barely felt it as he was dragged again, sliding across the cold garage floor. He expected ropes, cuffs, maybe a locked room. Instead, they were tossed into another SUV. The hoods came down again. Another drive. More disorientation. Then, finally, the vehicle stopped. The doors opened. Rough hands pushed them out onto rocky ground. The SUV peeled away, leaving nothing but tail lights fading into black. Ethan hit the gravel hard. He groaned, curling sideways. Logan lay beside him, coughing blood. As his vision cleared, Ethan saw the moon above, full and high. They were on a deserted highway. No signs. No lights. Just trees and shadows. Logan rolled onto his side, wheezing. They know everything. We need to go. Now. Ethan staggered upright, helping Logan to his feet. Together they limped down the road. After what felt like forever, they reached a shuttered gas station. Closed for the night. But there was a payphone outside. Ethan checked his pockets. No coins. Defeated, they slumped against the wall, broken and filthy. Minutes later, headlights appeared. A lone car slowed down and pulled over. The driver, a woman in her 50s, jumped out, startled by their battered condition. She offered to take them to the hospital. Ethan hesitated, then nodded. They had no choice. At the hospital, and realizations. Ethan's ribs were wrapped in tight bandages. Logan got several stitches over his right brow. A detective from the sheriff's department came in, notebook in hand, and took a brief, half-hearted statement. He asked no real questions. His disinterest was plain. Ethan didn't need long to figure it out. This guy was either terrified or on the Circle's payroll. No help was coming from within Oakbridge. Logan was dozing in a hard chair nearby, face battered. Ethan sat upright in bed, staring at his phone, willing it to buzz. Finally, a message popped up. Tyrone, I made it out. Gonna find somewhere safe. That was insane. Camera's a little messed up, but I have footage. I'll call you soon. Ethan closed his eyes. Some relief. At least Tyrone was safe, and they had something. But the Circle was powerful. They had resources, muscle, and influence. They'd beaten them, dumped them on the roadside like garbage. This wasn't over. Not even close. Confrontation. The next morning, against medical advice, Ethan checked himself out of the hospital. He moved stiffly, every breath a reminder of his bruised ribs. He returned to his modest home in Oakbridge. The two-story house looked unchanged, calm, almost oblivious to the nightmare he'd just lived through. He stepped inside and found Vanessa sitting in the living room. She wore a gray sweatsuit, hair damp from a recent shower, scrolling casually through her phone. When she saw his face, bruised, bloodied, limping, she jumped up, all faux concern. Oh my God, Ethan, what happened to you? Ethan's glare was ice. His voice trembled from both pain and fury. What do you think happened? I got beaten. By your secret society pals. They told me to back off or die. Her face paled instantly. It wasn't supposed to go that far. Spare me, Ethan snapped, slamming the door behind him. You've lied to me for months. Spa retreats? Yoga workshops? While you were off parading around in latex, bowing to masked psychos. Ethan, listen. No. You listen, he roared. I risked my life trying to find you. I got tortured, nearly killed. All for you. And you were part of that sick ceremony. Why? Vanessa's eyes filled with tears. It started out innocent. Some kind of elite networking group for my wellness brand, Vanessa said, her voice low. They promised investors, hush-hush deals. I was curious. But then, they showed me the other side. She paused, trembling. By the time I realized what it really was, they had blackmail material, photos, videos. They forced me into those suits, made me attend ceremonies. And if I refused, they said they'd ruin our lives. Yours, too. Get you fired. Or worse. Ethan's eyes flared. Fury burned deep in his chest. You should have told me, he growled. We could have fought it together. But instead, you lied. You kept going back. And you dragged Brianna into it. Vanessa's voice cracked. They told me to bring in other women. They said if I didn't, they'd start hurting you. I panicked. Brianna needed money. She agreed, at first. But then they trapped her too. Ethan stepped closer, wincing as pain flared across his bruised ribs. It's a sick cycle, he spat. And you never even gave me the chance to help. You let them turn you into a pawn. Tears streamed down Vanessa's cheeks. I wanted to protect you. I swear. Protect me? Ethan snapped. They nearly beat me to death. That's your idea of protection? He turned to walk away but paused, eyes narrowing. What's that by the vent? Vanessa froze. It's nothing. Just a loose board. Ethan didn't wait. He brushed past her, dropped to his knees, and pried up the floorboard. A small metal box lay hidden underneath. He hauled it out, flipped the latch, and opened it. Inside were stacks of $100 bills, bundled, crisp, neatly packed. There's over 100 grand in here, he said coldly. You've been hiding this. Where did it come from? Vanessa paled. I got it from the circle. For special appearances. I didn't mean to keep it from you. I was going to use it to start my own wellness business. I thought if I could just get it off the ground, I could stop all of it. Ethan stared at her, disgust hardening in his eyes. So that's it? You did all this for money? You let them degrade you. You recruited your friend. You endangered me. All for your dream business. He laughed bitterly, choking back a tear. Unbelievable. Vanessa slumped onto the couch, voice shaking. It's not just the money. They had blackmail. If I didn't cooperate, they'd destroy everything. I was scared, Ethan. Ethan clutched the box tighter. Scared? I just got half my bones kicked in and dumped on the side of the road. Where were you then? He turned toward the door. Wait, Vanessa cried, scrambling to her feet. What are you going to do? Ethan paused, gaze steely. I'm leaving. And I'm taking this money as partial compensation for the nightmare you dragged me into. Call the cops, call your little circle, I don't care. I'm done. She let out a strangled sob, covering her face with her hands as he walked out. The door slammed so hard the windows rattled. Meanwhile, Logan, battered and raging, confronted Brianna at their house. She ran toward him, arms open, but he shoved her away. Don't touch me, he said, voice tight and venomous. You got me kidnapped. Beaten. Start explaining. Brianna's eyes filled with tears. I'm so sorry, Logan. I never thought it would go that far. It started as a job. The money was amazing. And then they threatened me. Said they'd ruin us both. Logan clenched his jaw, the stitches above his eyebrow throbbing with his heartbeat. Ethan nearly died trying to track you down. Do you understand that? He's covered in bruises. I'm barely standing. That's what your opportunity cost us. Brianna sobbed. I was manipulated. I didn't mean to hurt anyone. Please, Logan. I still love you. He laughed bitterly. Love me? You sold your body to them. You sold your soul. She reached for him, but he stepped back. I can't trust you, he whispered. I'm filing for divorce. It's over, Brianna. She collapsed against the wall, weeping. No, please. You can't do this. Logan turned away, voice hollow. Watch me. Fall out. In the weeks that followed, Ethan and Logan healed slowly, physically and emotionally. Bandages and bruises faded, but the scars lingered. Ethan used part of the hidden money to retain a top-tier divorce attorney. He filed on grounds of emotional cruelty and irreconcilable differences. His lawyer floated the idea of pressing charges or exposing the circle, but Ethan knew better. Their influence ran too deep. Logan did the same. He hired a firm known for handling high-conflict divorce cases. Brianna, predictably, hired her own counsel. Vanessa did too, once she learned of Ethan's legal filing. The divorce proceedings began. Tensions escalated in court. Vanessa fought to claim the hidden money, arguing it was part of the marital estate. Ethan countered that it had been earned behind his back, used to fund illegal activity. Neither party wanted to explain too much. The circle was never named aloud. Lawyers used vague phrases, non-traditional income, extramarital contracts, private consulting. Eventually, after grueling negotiations, a settlement was reached. Ethan kept a majority of the hidden money, about $60,000. Vanessa kept a smaller portion, claiming she needed it to repay debts. Ethan didn't believe her and didn't care anymore. Logan's divorce followed a similar path. Brianna requested spousal support, citing Logan's stable income. Logan's lawyer pushed back hard, producing bank records showing Brianna had received large wire transfers from anonymous sources. The judge awarded her only minimal support, noting her unexplained financial gains. In the end, both men signed their names on the final decrees. Ethan's hand shook as he penned his name. A strange blend of heartbreak and relief flooded his chest. It was over, at least legally, but nothing would ever be the same. Logan stared hollow-eyed at the thick stack of paperwork, remembering the love he'd once shared with Brianna, now nothing more than a fading memory, buried under layers of betrayal and disbelief. Amid the legal chaos, Tyrone arranged a quiet, off-the-grid meeting at a worn-down highway diner. He slid a small thumb drive across the table toward Ethan and Logan. "This is the best I could salvage," he said, his voice low and grim. That camera really didn't enjoy its temporary home. He cracked a crooked grin, trying to lighten the moment. "But I got some solid footage before the battery got fussy." Logan swallowed hard. "Thank you, man. You saved our lives and risked yours to do it." Tyrone shrugged. "Hey, I did it because we're friends. And because after my ex cheated on me, I really hate that kind of secret double life crap." Then he smirked. "Also, let's be real, the cash you guys promised doesn't hurt. I'm gonna pay off some debt, maybe even start my own gym." He held up a finger. "But let's never speak again about how that camera got inside me. Deal?" They all laughed, a low, grim sound, but laughter nonetheless. A rare breath of levity in a story full of wounds. Ethan examined the thumb drive, turning it between his fingers. "So, is there enough here to bring the circle down? Or at least to threaten them?" Tyrone hesitated. "You see glimpses of powerful people. Some names you'd recognize. But they're masked. You see part of the ceremony. A few faces pop up when someone lifts their mask to drink. But it's not solid enough to hold in court. Their lawyers would tear this apart." Logan tapped his knuckles on the table, frustration flaring. "So once again, the rich and powerful get to hide behind their masks." Tyrone nodded. "Pretty much. Police might already be paid off. FBI might be interested, or might just bury it. These people have connections everywhere." Ethan let out a heavy breath. "We'll keep this somewhere safe. Treat it like insurance in case they come after us again." "Exactly," Logan said. "At least we have something. A sliver of leverage." Despite the lingering threat, Ethan and Logan began rebuilding. Ethan used a portion of the settlement money to start Carter Roofing. He leased a garage space for tools, hired 2 local workers, and bought a beat-up pickup truck. He had it rewrapped with a sleek logo and a tagline that read, "Carter Roofing, we've got you covered." The phrase made him smirk, half irony, half defiance. Logan, still reeling from betrayal, sold his house and moved to a modest rental near the city. He took a job in logistics management, a steady role that didn't remind him of the past. He avoided dating at first, choosing therapy and solitude instead. But eventually, he began seeing someone, a kind-hearted woman from his gym, nothing like Brianna. With her, things felt simple. Safe. They heard scattered rumors about Vanessa and Brianna. Vanessa supposedly left the country, perhaps hiding overseas. Brianna was said to have moved 2 states away, living off hush money. Neither woman reached out. And if they had, Ethan and Logan wouldn't have replied. Sometimes, a cryptic text would arrive from an unknown number, "Stay quiet." Or a black sedan might appear in Ethan's rearview mirror, only to vanish 2 blocks later. These moments reminded them that the circle still watched. Ethan backed up Tyrone's footage on several encrypted cloud drives. He even stored a physical copy in a secure, out-of-state deposit box. Once or twice, he considered contacting the press, or even a whistleblower network, but fear held him back. He remembered the bruises, the blood. The warning was clear. Life after divorce. The emotional wounds ran deep. Ethan often found himself haunted by memories of better days with Vanessa, the laughter, the shared dreams, the little rituals only couples understand. The woman who once danced barefoot in their kitchen had become unrecognizable, a stranger in a latex mask. Therapy helped. Hesitantly, Ethan began seeing a counselor after waking from nightmares, gasping for breath. Talking helped. Naming his rage gave it less power. He admitted that part of him still missed Vanessa, or who she used to be. His therapist said that was normal. He hadn't just lost a partner. He'd lost a future. Logan coped differently. He developed insomnia, plagued by visions of masked figures, of Brianna's betrayal, of being lost in the woods around the mansion. He poured his pain into workouts, lifting heavier and pushing harder each week. Punching bags became stand-ins for the past. Ethan's roofing business began to thrive. He found purpose in the precision of his work, lining shingles, measuring angles, sealing seams. Atop every finished roof, he'd pause and gaze over quiet suburbs. Rows of safe homes. Families who had no idea what darkness lurked behind well-manicured lawns. A year after the divorce, Ethan got a call from a new client, Sophie, a nurse who needed her elderly father's house re-roofed. She greeted Ethan with a warm smile and kind eyes that saw past his hard shell. Over the weeks of the job, they talked. Nothing deep. Just easy conversation that flowed like water over smooth stones. She asked about roofing techniques, laughed at his dry jokes. She brought iced tea during a particularly hot day. Ethan wasn't sure what it meant, or what might come next. But for the first time in a long while, he didn't feel like a man defined by trauma. He felt like someone starting again. She noticed the faint scars along his forearms, the dark bruises that hadn't yet faded, and she asked about them one evening as they stood by her porch. Ethan offered a vague answer, something about a rough patch, old mistakes. Sophie didn't press. She nodded quietly and changed the subject. That, more than anything, made him trust her. When the roofing job wrapped up, she surprised him, not with a handshake or a check, but with a tin of homemade cookies and an offer. If you ever want to grab coffee sometime, I'd like that. Ethan hesitated. The ghost of Vanessa still lingered in his thoughts, her betrayal like a scar beneath the surface. But he nodded. Sure, I'd like that too. Coffee turned into dinner. Dinner turned into quiet evenings at a cozy restaurant or long walks in the park. Sophie never demanded more than he could give. She let him open up on his terms. Some nights they talked about silly things. Other nights they sat in silence, comfortable and unpressured. Logan found something similar with Maya, a yoga instructor with a gentle laugh and a calming energy. She hadn't been married before, but she knew what heartbreak looked like. She never questioned the things Logan didn't say, just listened when he was ready to speak. Now and then, strange headlines crept into the news cycle. Local politician resigns amid rumors of scandal. Prominent CEO steps down following anonymous allegations. Charity donor accused of attending illicit gatherings. The stories never named the circle directly, but Ethan and Logan saw the patterns. They recognized the veiled references. They spotted the timing. Occasionally, a scapegoat would take the fall, an aide, a consultant, a peripheral figure. The true power brokers, the masked elite, walked free. Ethan suspected they always would. Tyrone's footage remained tucked away, stored on encrypted drives and hidden in multiple locations. It was their emergency plan, proof if they ever needed to defend themselves, a time bomb if the circle came knocking again. But without the backing of a major outlet or ironclad protection, they kept it locked away. Sometimes, on Friday nights, Ethan and Logan would meet at a quiet bar with no TVs and dim lighting. They'd drink cheap beer and talk about the madness they'd endured. They'd trade jokes about Tyrone and his camera, even though the laughter never quite reached their eyes. You think we'll ever be free? Logan asked one night, swirling the last of his beer. From them? From all of it? Ethan shrugged, his gaze lost in the foam of his glass. Maybe not completely, but we've built new lives. That counts for something. Logan lifted his drink. To new beginnings. Their glasses clinked with the weight of everything unsaid. On a cool autumn morning, Ethan stood on a sloped roof, hammer in hand, the wind crisp and scented with chimney smoke. Below him, the street buzzed with ordinary life, a man raking leaves, kids waiting for the school bus, a dog barking at a delivery truck. His crew laughed on the far side of the roof, shouting to each other as they hauled up bundles of shingles. Ethan straightened, stretching his back. From here, the neighborhood looked peaceful, so different from the darkness he'd seen. Then his phone buzzed in his pocket. He took off a glove, careful not to shift his balance, and checked the screen. A message from Sophie. Dinner at my place? Thinking homemade pasta. 3 work for you? He smiled, warmth spreading through his chest. Sounds perfect, he typed back. Slipping the phone away, he crouched to finish the row of shingles. Each piece he laid, every precise cut and tap of the hammer, it all felt like building something solid again. Something real. The scars were still there. The nightmares still woke him some nights. And the circle? He knew they hadn't gone away. Not entirely. Maybe they never would. But there was hope now, too. The quiet, steady kind. The kind that grew in open spaces and honest conversations. He hammered another nail, the metal ringing out into the clear air. Above him, the sky was a cool, cloudless blue. Below, life continued. Somewhere out there, Vanessa was a ghost of his past. Tyrone probably still grumbled about that one time with the camera. And the circle moved in silence, in shadows. But Ethan had stopped living in fear. He stood on rooftops now, looking out at the world with steady footing and clearer eyes. He had new work, new peace, a new start. And if the darkness came again, he'd be ready. He hammered in the next nail with quiet confidence. Because now, he understood, even the worst wounds could heal. Even broken things could be rebuilt.